One of the things that hits me right away when people are looking at these is that they can't believe that a messy group of pieces of steel can create a kind of a nice organized image. In a way, these pieces are a little bit magical in the sense they surprise you. You don't quite know why it's doing it. I had a few shows where the dealer had to stand there with the light flicking on and off because people were convinced that these were drawn on the wall because they couldn't possibly be made by these kinds of shapes. I can make something that'll surprise you because I'm casting a shadow in a way that you don't see the normal relationship that you expect between an object and the shadow that it casts. And it's interesting, actually, when you turn the light off, for example, you'll notice your attention immediately shift. I think that's very cool. So I was collecting all of these pieces, and I realized that depending on how I held them, they would cast thousands of different shadow shapes. The kind of information that each piece held was not just a matter of its intrinsic shape, but it's also its position in space. And so a lot of what I was doing in the beginning was drawing with the pieces of steel, just holding them in space, trying to figure out what kind of shadow they would cast. As the images became more complicated, I found that I couldn't do that anymore because I needed to sort of really begin to sort of plan out how the piece was going to get built. You have lots of different options, right? I mean, depending on how you hold it. A line can be long if it's held to the light like that. It could be a dot if you're shooting directly in there, or anywhere in between. I also found out that you can play with different densities of shadows. Later on, when I got over the fact that I wanted really nice, sharp, dark lines with a shadow, I realized that having fuzzy shadows is really nice, because then you can make it almost like a charcoal drawing. But with shadow, I mean, you're always dealing with how sharp it is. So notice that if I hold my hand here, the edge is really fuzzy. If I bring it close in, the edge gets to be very, very sharp. And the idea of a shadow casting a shadow is kind of fun to play with. We don't look at shadows. We're sort of aware of them, basically. If I want to get people to look at the shadows, then I have to give them a reason to look at the shadows and not look at the steel or not look at the objects. The shadow is really where the pictorial information is. You can see when you're looking at a piece like this, for example, that the steel is there, but you're looking right through the steel onto the image just because that's how we perceive things, But really, each piece is a kind of an installation. You have to have the right kind of light in the right place, aimed exactly the way it should be aimed so it intercepts the right part of the light beam. I know it's philosophical, but this notion that here you have a piece of steel, it's holding a bunch of information there, and you can retrieve it if you can position the steel in the right place and light it from the right well. Then you can kind of untangle, decrypt the kind of information. Otherwise, it just looks like a big blob. And that, to me, that's really fascinating. The idea that a blob can hold information is really cool.